Is your child bright, but every day still feels like a daily struggle? From pre K to college, let's talk about why and, of course, what to do about it. We often think school struggles come down to one thing: effort, attitude, or ability. But learning, focus, and motivation all depend on regulation of the nervous system. You can't learn if the nervous system is dysregulated. It's just not going to allow it. Many kids who are struggling with school, they struggle with either an understimulated nervous system, right? Problems with focus, processing, listening, or an overstimulated nervous system, impulse control, anxiety, OCD, different components that really make it hard. That's why we see a range of behaviors from zoning out and daydreaming to full shutdowns and meltdowns in school or around learning. When the brain is overloaded, that prefrontal cortex, that thinking brain, goes offline. Even the smartest kid isn't going to be able to plan, transition, complete tasks, or focus because the brain and the body think, I've got to survive. It's in survival mode. Regulation is the prerequisite for learning. Only a calm brain can focus, and a stressed out brain can't. And we have to start rethinking stress. That's what all of this regulation first parenting is about, because not everybody experiences things in the same way. And when our nervous systems are activated, we're actually going to have that stress. We're going to feel it like it's you almost got run over by a truck. When people who work with me one on one, I'm always using an analogy of your nervous system. It's so activated when you're driving and you almost get into a car accident. Whole for the next 10 minutes, you're like, holy moly, I almost got hit by a car. But for people with compounded stress, their nervous system is reacting in the same way, with maybe an ask to transition or socks that don't feel right or just a little bit too much homework. Let's talk about common struggles across every age. We have younger kids. What are we seeing in early childhood, preschool, elementary? We might see meltdowns over transitions. We might see avoiding writing, and there's a lot to unpack. That's its whole own episode. Rushing through tasks, trouble sitting still, really issues with not completing work in a timely manner. And we also really get our first clues into difficulties with phonics and dyslexia and reading. It becomes quite apparent. And don't let anybody tell you something different. Married into an entire dyslexic family, have dyslexic kids, is that what happens is that it is very identifiable by age 4. That's another conversation. So, what's happening in these younger kids? Typically, their sensory and emotional systems are immature. They're developing, and we are asking kids to do much, right? Too much. So there might be developmentally inappropriate pressure to do tasks they shouldn't be doing, stimulation, and that just sends a signal to the brain: fight, flight, or freeze. That's evolutionary, and that's what's happening. We're going to talk about what we do. Middle school kids, you're starting to see resistance, irritability. You maybe even hear, I don't care. You'll start to see those executive functioning breakdowns where maybe these are kids that are really smart and they were able to regurgitate. Now you got to really show the work and you got to study for tests and quizzes. That's really when it starts to happen. Wait till high school. Here, we're really starting to get the peak of executive functioning overload because, again, they're not just regurgitating, they have to integrate. So, executive functioning, job manager of the brain, that's that part that's gonna tell us, like, "Oh, don't forget you got the math test on Tuesday, but you gotta study on Sunday and Monday and do these other things to help you do it." So, you're asked to plan, organize, and emotionally regulate all at the same time. But their neural wiring isn't fully there yet. And just so you know, executive functioning doesn't develop fully in the frontal lobes till 28. So, high school, what are we going to see? We might see anxious behaviors. We might see, and that might look like resistance or crying or anxious avoidance. We might see perfectionism, which many parents kind of value, but that's always going to kick you in the butt and hurt you later. We might see procrastination. We might see sleep issues. We might see screen addiction. You also might see kids who just are so resistant to like actually doing any other work because they're done. So, what's happening with them from a biological perspective? What's happening with high schoolers? Why are they resisting? So, here we're seeing a lot of stress hormones increasing, cortisol, dopamine imbalances. It starts impairing and eroding their sleep and their motivation, especially our poor eaters. And remember, 70% of American children are primarily eating processed foods. It's not to shame you, it's to educate you because we need more nutrients. Their nervous systems are often stuck in chronic hyperarousal, that overstimulation. And then once, even though neurologically the executive part functioning parts of their brain are more developed, but if they're in hyperarousal overstimulation, and you have increased tests and quizzes, you're going to actually start seeing a breakdown because only a calm brain can learn and absorb. Hopefully, you're getting that one. So, college kids, this is what you start to see. This is when the training wheels come off. If you've been over nurturing and over accommodating your kids, and they're supposed to just figure it out on their own because their college is the ultimate test of executive functioning. You really have to figure stuff out, and you're not getting a lot of guidance in class. You are learning on your own. So it really does not matter how smart you are for college. It matters how good your executive functioning is. That's a big one right there. So you might see burnout, you might see missed deadlines, skip classes. I see kids really struggling with attendance. They start shutting down, withdrawal, anxiety spikes and stuff. You probably see a real uptick in marijuana use. And I mean multiple times a day. There are many, many kids smoking all the time. That's not good for your brain. Without consistent co regulation in childhood, self-regulation can lag for any of these groupings, but you really get to see it in college because you're supposed to be independent. So that stress of independence, poor nutrition. I mean, all colleges have really healthy foods now. There's no excuse. And then screen fatigue really keeps kids dysregulated. And this is, we all manage college, but if those trifecta, those things are all occurring, it's a check against you. And then you're neurodivergent or you have anxiety and you have depression or it's just another one. I had a mom and her daughter really went from honor roll to failing 2 classes in high school. And so her mom was like, she's not, doesn't care. And she wound up coming to me. And she really felt like she was being lazy and not prioritizing the right things. Lots of arguing, lots of door slamming. And really what happened was we dug deeper and she wasn't lazy. She was just exhausted. She was maxed out. She was in too many high-level classes, sports and this and volunteering, just chronic overdoing it to be at the top. And I don't know what the top was going to get you. A movie from like 20 years ago is The Race to Nowhere about how these kids race for college. A lot of pressure on kids. What we needed to do is add short resets. So breathing, constant breath work throughout the day, somatic work, some butterfly tapping. She wound up using PEMF. I always got it on me. Using PEMF, she just started chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. And then her sleep started getting better. It was a real clear deadline of when the devices had to be off and just a much better what they call sleep hygiene, really having a routine that really helps you. And those small things really started to help. Let's talk about what we're supposed to do at every single level to help. The thing that we need to do when it comes to preschool education at every educational level, we always want to partner with teachers. And I'm going to talk about college too, because it's not always easy, but they're critical in this. And 90% of teachers are really great and 10% are control freaks and shouldn't be there. If you identify with the 10%, it's time for a new job. But in preschool and elementary, you're always going to ask for a meeting with the teacher. They have a lot of power. Your kid is with them all day long. It's different for the upper levels. You want to not wait to a conference. You want to actually have an explicit meeting to talk about concerns and find out what's going on in class. And also let your kids freaking out at home with after school restraint collapse. Make sure to watch that episode or listen. What happens is they might not be aware or maybe the clues are there, but your kid's holding it together, which happens an awful lot. You want to let them know, like, my kid's overwhelmed by noise and transition, present solutions. Oh, could we offer a sensory break? You really want to let them know what works. Also, if you have no idea what works, you want to find out from the teacher what works. But small things, particularly in preschool and elementary, can make huge differences. Now, if your teacher's seeing problems and you make a plan in any of these and it doesn't work, you have to go one level up. You're going to need a more formal meeting, like a 504 or an IEP meeting. But this is really about I'm identifying a problem. What do I do? In middle and high school, you're going to request a team meeting. Now, this does not have to be a 504 or an IEP meeting, but you're going to ask for a meeting with the teacher, the guidance counselor, case manager, whatever. And then you're going to want to tell them, like, my kid shuts down when they're stressed. Again, ask for breaks. What can they do? Right? What are simple things that could be integrated to help your kid regulate? And then open that door to more formal supports if needed. And again, find out what's happening there, what's working, what's not working. And sometimes we assume that because the school didn't call us, there's not a problem. That may not be the case, people. And sometimes you have the other way where you're like, holy cow, they're calling me over everything. It's a great time to have a meeting. Okay, college. What the key thing you have to do in college is encourage self advocacy. Because guess what? Unless you have a signed consent for and your kid's going to a learning center, you're not really going to get anything from the college because they are legally an adult. So, what can you do in the background? Number one, find out if there is a school learning center and what resources are available. Every college and university in America has a school learning center. Not all the same in terms of quality. So, find out what are important deadlines, timelines for your child's grades and semester assignments. So you might say the 30th of October is the last time to be able to drop ad. These are really important because let's say if your kid was taking 5 classes, but this one class, there's no chance they can pass it. Why wouldn't you drop it? Because then it's going to f up their whole average and maybe they're on academic probation and they'll lose their scholarship. Find out the deadlines, call up. You can find out all that stuff. They'll talk to you about that. And then find out from that center. Usually the people at the learning center are like the best. FYI. Can you contact the accessibility office? What's available for them? And then, really you're going to have to make a plan with your adult child. And this is where I see people mess up. Okay? I'd actually like to use the F word on this, but I'm not gonna because they are paying for school and they don't set boundaries. I recently had somebody who I begged not to go back to school and they did, and they're struggling, and nobody wants that. But the boundaries were put in place, but not really in a way that would be helpful. And what does that look like? What exactly do you have to do with your kid? You know how many times I've had to do a written contract? Do a written contract. And please know, I know everybody freaks out, but if your kid is struggling with mental health, which is the number one reason college kids don't make it, there is no shame in taking a semester off to invest in healing. You're gonna complain, "Oh, he wants to go and this and that." Tough nookies. Get your mental health together, people. One of the worst things I see people do. It's very frustrating. And every August, somebody comes in and is like, 2 weeks before the school, can you what can we do? And I'm like, you can take the semester off. How about that? And you can go to counseling every week and you can do neurofeedback and PEMF and you can do these things at home. And how about family therapy? You got to do other things. And they're showing you they're not making it. You can wish all you want that sending them there is going to get them to snap in. And in fact, it's often the breaking point. But the bottom line is collaboration. Just know that when your kid's brain is calm, they can learn and thrive. And that's a language that every educator will understand. Most teachers are very open to those movement breaks and calm down corners, and they're building it in there. And so we have to stop thinking, our kid won't learn and that they can't learn. Instead, we can say when we regulate first, we can unlock their learning. So how can we get the school on board? But Don't wait for your school to contact you. Don't do it in a parent-teacher conference, and get in there and have conversations. There's nothing wrong with being proactive. I mean, I've had to do it every time. I'm like, "Oh, this is very clarifying," and sometimes I had an agenda and a plan, and the teachers brought me something that I didn't expect, and it worked out great. So be open-minded, but also be clear about how you have to advocate for your child, and ask, "What do you have that could support this?" Best question to ask of a school, team meeting, a teacher, because you don't know what they have, and it could be something amazing for your child. And every time when I used to go to school meetings, I would ask that, and parents would be like, "Why didn't they tell us they had that?" And I was like, "Well, you don't ask the right questions. You don't know. It's not like they're hiding it from you. They just maybe didn't understand that how significant that was. You are your child's best advocate. So speaking up is helpful." So, what are you going to do at home besides that meeting? This is your action step. You're going to pick one academic related stress point. So, mornings, bedtime, homework, whatever it is that they resist school, fine, we're going to add it there. After dinner, because they're stressing about the next day, we're going to add it there. And you're going to add a 3-minute nervous system reset. Breath, a little dancing with music, a little exercise, a clavicle EFT tapping, a butterfly tap. Do it. Do it consistently for 1 week every day and see, is there a difference? Now, once a day is great, but like 3 times a day is even better, but you gotta start somewhere. Just remember, you can't pour knowledge into a brain that's on fire. You gotta calm the brain first, and then learning will follow when you do that. So if you want more calm first parenting and learning strategies that actually work and are based on science, you're going to join me in our Dysregulation Insider newsletter, and you just have to go to drroseann.com/newsletter. And remember, if your kid is having a hard time at school, please don't wait. Talk to your kid's teacher or team.
Want more insights and solutions? Well, subscribe to our Dysregulation Insider and it will show up in your inbox every week.